today we're going to learn how to add custom characters to the game type-up. We'll start with a rundown of all the steps we're going to follow, and then we'll go into detail for those steps, and then we'll round everything else out at the end. To start with, the general steps we're going to follow is set up Unity, create a new project, import the asset bundler package, import our character model, set up the character model, use the bundler, fill in the information. Once that's done, copy the bundle over to the games folder, and then run the game, and everything done right, it should work nicely. To set up Unity, we'll need to download it, go into any search engine you like, search Unity, and it will be one of the top results. It might even get a link straight to the download page. From there, I'm going to be using the Unity Hub. There is loads of documentation on Unity and setting it up and using it, so if you've got any questions, any search engine, put in your question, put in the point of problem you're having, and there will be someone else who's asked the same thing, and there will almost certainly be someone who's answered it already. Once that's done and you've started Unity up, you'll have a part where you create a new project. Simply create new, choose 3D, give it any name you like. I'm giving it tutorial project just so I remember what it's for. Set your save location wherever you like. Hit the button and we'll wait for that to get done. In the meantime, we'll download the asset bundler package. It's a very small file. This is what's going to make our character model readable by the game. So we download that. And now the project's set up, you'll probably see something that looks somewhat like this, with a whole bunch of different windows. If you've never used Unity before, here's a quick rundown of what all these different things you're looking at are. In the middle is our scene view. This lets us see what's going on in the scene. This is going to be most useful for making sure everything looks right. To the left is called the scene hierarchy. This lists all the objects in the scene. When we click on something in the scene hierarchy, on the right hand side, lots of information pops up. This is called the inspector, and it lets you see information about objects, and it lets you change certain parameters about objects. At the bottom are our project files and folders. Currently in the assets folder, and we have one folder called scenes which contains the sample scene that we're looking at. So all we need to do, get our asset bundler package that we downloaded, and just drag and drop that into this folder. This will bring up a little pop-up window, and what this is going to do is add these files and folders to our project. You'll see there's a little warning symbol here. That's just because the scene name in the package is the same as the one we already have. We're not going to be using the default scene anyway, so that's fine. Click import, wait for that, and because we've got the same scene name, it's going to ask us to reload. That's fine, click that, and it updates, and we can see that it's changed, it's added all our folders. So we've got 3 folders, editors, scenes, and scripts. We'll learn more about what's going on in here when we get on to bundling our character. And talking of, the next thing to do is add our character. Any file format that Unity can recognise can be used in the game. If you have a model already on your computer that you'd like to use, you can use that, no problem. If you don't have a model, you can get them from loads of places. Unity has its asset store, a little tab at the top there if you want to go to that. There's also dedicated modelling websites like Sketchfab. There's also more general websites like the Japanese website Booth that also has 3D models. So long as you have the rights to do so, you can rip them from other programs. Whatever way you get the model, and make sure that it's in a file format that Unity can read. If you get it from the asset store, it has a button in there to import directly into your project. Otherwise, what we're going to do today is take a model I've got on my computer right now. We're just going to drag and drop that folder into our project, and that'll take some time. And it will take more time than our asset bundler package, just because there's more data. So once that's done, we'll see there's 4 files here, a readme file, another Unity package file, a texture folder, and a model folder. When you add models into Unity, they'll normally come in one of 2 ways. They'll either come with a Unity package that will set most things up for you, or they'll be in a raw folders and files and you'll have to set it up yourself, and as I said, there's lots of documentation on how to do this. If you're not certain on how to do this, try and get a model that has a Unity package with everything set up for you. Because this is a more basic tutorial, we're going to use the Unity package, so we'll just double click on that. It gives us another one of these windows, we'll click import. And now if we go back to our assets folder, we'll see we have another folder here, and this contains a lot more stuff, including something which if we click on it, is called a prefab, so if we drag and drop this into our scene, it all looks good. However, it's still a good idea to make sure, so if we click back on the prefab in our folder view, and then on the right hand side there's a button called Open Prefab, this will open a special view where we can edit everything about that prefab. And if we click here, we see on the right there are some warnings saying there are missing scripts. This, I believe, is because the model requires scripts from something called Dynamic Bone, which we don't have in our project. We can either add Dynamic Bone, or we can remove all the scripts, and I believe Dynamic Bone is something that costs money. You might not want to do that, so you might want to go through and delete them. Now there are 2 ways to delete this. You can try and find or make a script that removes empty scripts from your game objects, or you can go through this by hand. And for this, and because I know there aren't too many on this model, I'm going to go through this by hand. If there aren't that many, like with this one, or you're not sure about doing the script way, then you can do it by hand. And if you're going to do it by hand, there is a little trick here. See these 3 dots on the right hand side, click that, brings up a menu, click remove component on the first one, it will say we can't save. Now if we look down here on the left, there are 2 tabs, project and console. If we click on console, then there'll be all these red warnings. If we single click on a warning, it will highlight in the hierarchy what object that script is supposed to be attached to. We simply click on that, and then we can delete it from that object. If you double click in the console, by the way, it will try and open up Visual Studio, which can take a long time to open, and Unity can't do anything while it's opening, so try to avoid that. It won't hurt anything if you do it, it will just slow you down. Once we've sorted that out, we can exit our prefab by clicking this little arrow on the top left of the scene hierarchy. And if we wanted to do any other changes to this model, there are loads of things we can do. We can change the scaling. Make sure if you change the scaling to set X, Y, and Z to be all the same, or the model will look stretched. We can also change something called the shaders inside the prefab, and actually I'll go and show you about that. This is most useful if you get a model that doesn't have its own shaders, or shaders that don't look good in the game. As before, you can find shaders in lots of places. If you want a simple cartoony shader that looks alright in the game, there is something in the Unity asset store called the standard assets. If you download that, it includes a toon shader, including a lit toon shader, which works well with the lighting in the game. You might also have to mess around with some other things to make it look good. For now, I reckon our model is about ready, so what we'll do is, if we look along the top, there are different buttons, including one that says Type Up. If we click that, there is a drop-down option for Bundle Character. Click that, and this is asking us for the information that the game's going to need in order to make our character work. The first thing is the character model, so what we do is we take the prefab from the folder view and drag it up to this option. Don't take the one from the scene, it won't work if you do it through the scene. Then we enter the character's name. This is how the name will appear in the game. We also have the option for a menu name. If you don't put anything in there, it will default to the first name you put in. However, if you've got, say, 2 characters with the same name, or 2 variations of the same character, it can be good to set different menu names so that you know what the difference is between them. You don't have to click to see. Then height in inches, and as you see in this character model, the character's ears and little headpiece thing goes above the top of their head. This is why we have our little height meter over here. While the game could calculate a character's height from toe to top, that wouldn't actually be the character's real height because of the ears and headpiece. So we do it manually, and we've got this little thing that I've put in just to help ballpark what the height should be, and it's not a problem if it's not exact. So if we count up on this, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and just short of 4/6, that's 4/5. If you don't know feet and inches, just go to any search engine and search up whatever it is you need the conversion, and indeed do that right now, and it says 4 foot 5 in inches is 53 inches. Put that in the box, and we've got 2 other options. We're going to leave these ticked. The top one is a just in case for future proofing, we don't need to fiddle with that one. And the bottom option is we'll only turn that off if our character's rotation doesn't turn out right with the default option. Okay, the default, it sets it to 0, 180, 0, so if the default doesn't work, then we can go back in, set the rotation manually, and then deselect this. With all that set up, all we have to do is click the button and wait for it to build our bundle. Now we have our bundle, the only thing left to do is put it in our streaming assets folder. There are 3 ways to access this. If you know where it is, you can look through the file browser and go straight to it. If you don't know where it is, there are 2 ways to find it. One way is to open up the game, click the custom assets folder, and that will take you straight to it. At the time of recording, you'll have to restart the game in order to get it to reread the folder. The other way is if you go into Steam, go to your Steam library, right click the game, properties, local files, browse local files. This will take you to the games folder, and then it's the type up data, streaming assets, and then we can simply copy and paste our .typeup file into the streaming assets folder, start the game up, and if we look in the characters menu, there it is right there, and you can even see another one in there that I was messing about with. Now the lighting doesn't quite work with our model, and we could go back and make it all look nicer. For now, let's just round everything up. There is so much stuff on Unity and 3D modeling on the internet, on people asking all sorts of questions, so if you search up a question, if you search up an error, someone else will almost certainly have done the same thing, and someone else will almost certainly have answered it. It's also important to point out that these asset bundles aren't designed for distribution, they're just designed for you to be able to get the models you have into the game. As such, be careful about downloading an asset bundle from the internet, because it could be literally any kind of file that Unity can read in there. Make sure you always know what's in the asset bundle before you put them in the game, okay, and make sure you have the rights to things. And if you aren't sure, you can always ask questions, okay? I hope that's been useful, I hope you enjoy the game, thank you, and good night.